Fuji is an ugly, disgusting high school student who wants to study love with his teacher Hina. But Hina is not interested in boys like them, so the boys meet some girls from a nearby school to satisfy the hunger of the 4-inch devil hiding behind their school pants. But one of them, Rei, dislikes socializing, and Fuji notices this and goes after her to find out why. Then Rei tells that she is used to living alone, and Fuji also tells that he also does not like to mingle with people, so both of them come out. Then Rei takes him to her house, where no one is present, and she immediately asks him to develop plot with her. Fuji hesitated because he had never developed a plot before. But Rei assures him that she too is a novice like him, which makes Fuji realize that his love boat is unlikely to ever anchor on Hina's holy island, so he agrees to develop plot with Rei. However, after only 5 minutes, the roaring lion of youth hidden behind his pants transforms into a mouse and returns to its hole, which Rei dislikes and asks him not to show his face again. But Fuji is so dense that he cannot understand its meaning, and to brag about this, he goes to his friend, who is surprised to hear about his achievement. But because Fuji developed plot with an unknown girl, he didn't get much satisfaction. So he continues to write his novel about his and Hina's love story. However, when Hina attempts to read it, he stops her because it contains his heartfelt words. But Hina had read a page a few days ago, so she is aware of the flood of love that is boiling for her on Fuji's Mount Fuji. And she keeps playing with his emotions, possibly because she considers Fuji a child. So the next day, when he notices Hina crying alone on the terrace, he loses control of his emotions and asks her why. But Hina refuses because she considers him a child. However, Fuji becomes enraged by this and is about to declare his love rashly when Hina's phone rings, and he controls his anger. When he returns home, his father enthusiastically informs him that he has decided to remarry, and then the doorbell rings, revealing his would-be mother and her 2 daughters, 2 of whom are unfortunately Hina and Rei, the 2 girls whom he would never want to see as sisters. But Hina is overjoyed to see him, while Rei refuses to recognize him. Because Fuji does not want both of them to be his sisters, he doesn't want his father to get married. So when he finds Rei waiting outside the bathroom, he proposes to her that the marriage should not take place. But Rei is not as cheap as he is, and she refuses to sacrifice her mother's happiness for her own. After they leave, Fuji notices his father, who has been alone for years, smiling happily, and thus agrees to their marriage. The next day, Fuji arrives with his father to move into the new house, where he meets Hina, who is overjoyed to have a younger brother, but he feels embarrassed to consider her as sister. Then he meets Rei, but because of developing plot with her, he feels strange considering her as his sister, so Rei advises him to forget the incident. Later, when everyone is in the kitchen, Hina appears in front of everyone, showing her plot, as she has a habit of doing. But even when she is dressed, Fuji's emotions begin to surge in Mount Fuji. Then after some time everyone went to sleep, leaving the young goat along with the hungry wolf, knowing that the wolf is tied in the chain of a brother-sister relationship. However, the chain fails to deter the hungry wolf, who attempts to suck nectar from the goat's lips. But then Rei notices him doing this, but she ignores him because Hina was also to blame for being careless. Then the next day Rei also transfers to Fuji's school, which surprises him as he had no knowledge about it, so he comes out to talk to her and tells her to keep their relationship a secret, but Rei misunderstood. He doesn't want to have anything to do with her. Then, when Fuji meets Hina, he asks her to keep their relationship private, but she does not mind. Hina asks if they were making out last night because she cannot remember anything, but he quickly denies it. Fuji later discovers Rei eating alone and asks her why, as many girls wanted to befriend her in the morning. However, Rei claims that she turned down all of them. Fuji realizes Rei is socially awkward, so he begins speaking to her as if she were a girl, with the intent of assisting her. But Rei is so stubborn that their conversation quickly escalates into a heated argument, which the entire class listens to with surprise. However, those people admire Rei's style and express a desire to be friends with her, and Fuji unknowingly assists Rei. When Fuji is about to take a bath, Rei is already inside, so he begins to leave, but she calls him back in because she wants to discuss something special. When Fuji enters hesitantly, Rei questions why he attempted to kiss Hina. Because Hina has been worried about her boyfriend for a few days, she believes Fuji was trying to cheer her up, but he knows nothing about him, so she leaves without telling him anything. The next morning, their parents inform them that they will be going out to eat today, so Hina is given the responsibility of preparing dinner. But aside from salad, Hina does not know how to cook, so Rei has to cook everything. After dinner, Fuji inquires about Hina's boyfriend. However, Hina does not want to discuss her personal life with Fuji, so she begins talking about her hairstyle. Then her boyfriend calls and asks her to meet him outside. Fuji tries to accompany her, but Hina leaves him at home. Fuji sits outside waiting for Hina, but when she arrives, she is crying. Fuji inquires as to why Hina is crying, but she refuses to answer. Roy arrives just in time, but before she can ask any questions, their parents return home. The next day in class, Fuji continues to think about Hina, then meets his friend and tells him about last night. Fumio believes Fuji is jealous of Hina's boyfriend because this has happened to him numerous times. Then while going back home, Fuji sees Hina who is saying goodbye to her boyfriend. This upsets him, so he comes to meet Hina at midnight. Fuji questions Hina about her affair, and Hina admits that she is having an affair with a married man. After that, Hina attempts to push him out of the room, but Fuji unexpectedly kisses her. This causes her to slap him, but then she gets excited and throws Fuji on the bed. But Fuji becomes nervous and she asks him to leave the room. Fuji walks out of her room, embarrassed, then returns to his room and begins crying. The next day, he ran away, leaving a note stating that he was going to stay at a friend's house for a while. Fuji goes to Fumio's house, where he is advised to write his novel to overcome his feelings for Hina. But as he begins writing the novel, memories of her begin to bother him. So he looks out the window and sees Rui, who is looking for him, and she sees Fuji at the window. Rui expresses her desire to live with Fuji, but he is unable to make a decision. Fumio's mother notices them standing outside and brings them inside. After some time, when Fumio comes home, Rui tells him that she had a fight with Hina because she was asking her to break up with her boyfriend, but she did not listen to her, so she ran away. Fuji also wants to end Hina's relationship with that man, so the three of them devise a plan, and when Fuji and Rui return home, Hina bursts into tears and apologizes. The next day, Fuji and Rui keep an eye on Hina as planned and follow her when she goes to meet her boyfriend. When Hina goes to a bar and starts drinking alone, they both wait for her boyfriend, but despite the hours passing, no one arrives, and Hina leaves. Then she stands on the road and begins waiting for someone. They expect it to be her boyfriend, but it is actually a girl. When their plan fails, they steal Hina's phone and intend to call her boyfriend and ask him to end the relationship. But Rui becomes nervous and is unable to speak. Their attempt fails, so they come to meet Fumio, then Hina comes there with her boyfriend. On seeing him, Fuji loses his cool and asks him to break up with Hina, but the manager advises them to talk like humans. Then Hajiwara tells them that he has been dating Hina for 2 years and plans to divorce his wife and marry her soon, but he needs more time. This pisses Rui, who throws water on his face, then she runs away and Fuji goes after her. Rui begins crying, and Fuji hugs her to calm her down. Then Hina and Hajiwara come out, and he realizes that Fuji loves Hina. But Hina considers him a child and her brother, so she asks Hajiwara to stay away from her for a while, and the two of them hug and say goodbye. The next day, Hina attempts to speak with Rui, but she ignores her, and when she asks Fuji to accompany her shopping, he also declines because he is going to the cemetery to meet his mother today, and both sisters are also there. Hina informs Fuji that she has broken up with Hajiwara, which surprises him, and the two of them give flowers to his mother. The next day at school, Rui meets a cute girl named Momo who wants to be friends with her, so she gives her a creepy doll, which Rui accepts, but when her friends see the doll, they throw it away because Momo has affairs with many boys and is considered a characterless girl. But Rui takes the creepy doll back because she wants to make her own decisions. The next day, when Momo sees her, Rui asks her about her relationships with many boys, to which Momo responds that she only has relationships with 30 boys, but she gives everyone a chance one by one. They gradually become friends, and one day they meet Fuji in the library, to which Momo takes a strong liking. Then, on the way home, Fuji saves Momo from a bicycle, impressing her even more. That is why, after Fuji leaves, Momo asks Rui for help in becoming Fuji's girlfriend, and she agrees, but when she returns home, she is sad, and the next day Rui becomes ill, so she goes home early, and Momo comes to meet Fuji and asks him on a date after school, but Fuji comes home to care for Rui. When Rui asks why he did not go on the date, he explains that he could not leave her alone. This makes her happy, so she starts taking off her clothes and asks Fuji to clean her. Poor Fuji somehow cleans her and looks after her all night. But her fever rises at night, so Fuji calls her mother, who tells him to give Rui the suppository. But Rui becomes so ill that she cannot insert it herself, so she lies down on her stomach, forcing Fuji to give her the suppository, which exhausts him completely. The next day, he meets Momo to apologize for not showing up for the date, and Fuji's friend notices them talking and later advises him not to date Momo due to rumors. But Fuji refuses to miss out on this opportunity, so he goes to meet Momo. Within a short time, both of them become close friends, and Momo invites Fuji to her home, where they talk lovingly alone on the bed. Fuji then prepares udon for Momo, who begins crying with joy because she always eats alone due to her parents' fights. The next day, while reading a novel, Fuji meets a teacher named Korea, who asks him about his favorite author, and he gives the name Hosokawa, to which Korea praises his taste. Later, when Fuji meets Rui, she asks Fuji for assistance in finding a club for her, but when her friends learn about it, they accompany him, but the boys discover some cultural activities there, and they are separated. After that, they go to the library, where Fuji discovers Hosokawa's book, which he takes home to read without permission. When he comes to put the book back, he notices Korea developing plot with a student. When he asks about it, Ashihara explains that she was assisting him in removing dust from his eyes. Then Korea forces Fuji to join Ashihara's club, and if he refuses, he threatens to accuse him of stealing the book, forcing Fuji to agree. Then they start distributing club pamphlets to add members, but Ashihara does not distribute the pamphlets because she is very shy. But the next day, when Korea asks them to kiss each other to write a good romance story, Fuji gets nervous, but Ashihara immediately agrees. Korea pushes Fuji to kiss her, but Fuji stops when he notices Ashihara is forcing herself. The next day, Rei and Momo express their desire to join Fuji's club, so he takes them to meet Ashihara, and they both join the literature club. Later, Rei informs the bar manager that she is experiencing strange feelings, and the manager explains that she may have fallen in love. Meanwhile, Fuji and Hina are alone at home, and Hina begins looking at Fuji before asking him to hang out with her. Both sisters are now very interested in Fuji, but we will see which of them takes him first in the next part. Thank you for watching the video.